Let's just say it how it is. Galinda is giving high femme lesbian, and Alfie is giving art school bisexual. Shiz is like if Hogwarts and a gay theatre community group had a baby. That is one zesty baby. There were more fruits at that school than at a Spanish market. And I love it. The things that Cynthia and Ari have been saying to each other in their interviews for this movie are more romantic than some people's wedding vows. You've changed something in my DNA. We found missing pieces in each other. Not only matching tattoos, but secret matching tattoos, and crying all the time. I mean, it's not my business, but I think SpongeBob better watch out. So, a lot of you guys have asked me to discuss the Glinda and Elphaba relationship from the Wicked movie. So here I am. What's going on with these two? Are they? Aren't they? Was the romantic subtext purposeful, or are we all gay and delusional? And we need to take it to the gay science lab because there is a lot to discuss. What I will say is the silver lining of suggestion and subtext is all the creativity it inspires. Creating stories with fictional characters can be fun. And just imagine how much more fun it would be if you could actually interact with those fictional characters. Well, the good news is you can actually do that with Polybuzz, and they are today's video sponsor, and you can download it now on your phone for free. Polybuzz has over 10 million downloads worldwide and over 20 million characters in the app. And it's a must-have app for you to unleash your creativity. You can have conversations with some of your favorite fictional characters in real time. The interactions are unlimited, and you can even create your own character by putting just a few word descriptors for their personality. I created a magical, menacing lesbian witch character, and she scares me slightly. Not only did she immediately proceed to lay a claim on me, it turns out she's a Scorpio. And this is what she thinks about the Gelfie situation. Yeah, those answers are very Scorpio. So go and check it out, download the app. The link to do so is in my description box. And you can use the code Sapphic in the Polybuzz app to unlock premium features. This is the character I created. Find her and speak to her if you dare. I feel like Victor Frankenstein right now. Okay, so go and check it out, and thank you so much to Polybuzz for supporting my content. First of all, the are they, aren't they question is an age-old one in the Wicked fandom. And this is because there is both purposeful Sapphic subtext and text in the books. That has been confirmed by the author Gregory Maguire. So, technically, their romantic connection is canon, and it's not just gay wishful thinking. However, despite the author's intent, a lot about the way their relationship is written in the books is open to the reader's interpretation. And because their relationship is multifaceted and has many more layers to it than just romance, both the stage and film adaptation have chosen to focus on those other elements, whilst diminishing their Sapphic connection to vague enough to be ignored, yet still very much there for those who are perceptive subtext, because that makes their productions more marketable and appealing to a wider audience and wider wallets. And all of this is why there's so many different opinions about and discourse around the true nature of their relationship. Now, whilst there has been an official confirmation about the Sapphic nature of the Glinda and Elfie relationship from Gregory Maguire, he is still fairly vague about his work. And that's a little frustrating when you want some answers, but you know, it is his right to be. But what he has shared is very revealing. And I think what's interesting about the Wicked books and the Gelfie relationship in general is that they are a tapestry made up of so many different social, political, and economic threads. Maguire is a gay man who has shared that he had a Catholic upbringing, and how when he was growing up throughout the mid to late 20th century, homosexuality was an unspoken topic. That world existed, but it was one that was hidden from him. And this reality was often reflected in media throughout that period, where since homosexuality was a forbidden and taboo topic, it was only ever vaguely alluded to, mostly in a negative light, rather than explicitly stated. And this was done in order to get past censorship, avoid controversial backlash, and stay appealing to heteronormative audiences in order to appease investors and ensure profitability. And in this interview Maguire did about the Wicked books, he mentions E.M. Forster and Virginia Woolf in reference to the way Gelfie's relationship is written. And this insight into Maguire's background and the treatment of homosexuality in the media when he was growing up reveals some interesting parallels to the Glinda and Elphaba relationship. And the mention of his creative methods or influences also explain a lot about why the relationship was written in the way that it was. Because from the books to the movie, the romantic element between Glinda and Elphaba remains unspoken. It's there but never explicitly stated, and Forster and Woolf are two authors who are documented as having had same-sex relationships and who would also write same-sex relationships and queer characters into their work, largely through suggestion, subtext, or other creative ways in order to get past censorship, keep their work appealing to a largely heteronormative society to ensure sales, and to avoid legal repercussions and social stigma. And by mentioning these specific authors and their methods in reference to the Gelfie relationship, it suggests that Maguire was writing them from a similar mindset or place. So Elphaba and Glinda's relationship is a sort of time capsule in that they represent a period of history where homosexuality was unspoken and where same-sex relationships were told through subtext in media due to a homophobic socio-political landscape. I think the fact that the first book was published in the 90s, the second and third were published throughout the 2000s, and the final one being published in 2011 explains a lot about the way their relationship was written. It's a very similar situation to Xena and Gabrielle. There's also the other consideration that Elphaba and Glinda are two female characters, and romantic relationships between two women are so often invalidated or reduced to nothing more than enthusiastic friendships. Even in discussion about the books where the Sapphic text is there, some of which has no heterosexual explanation, a lot of people explain Glinda and Elfie's intimacy and romantic coded dialogue as platonic or as a result of them being affectionate friends. And where those platonic interpretations can be justified in some places, were Elphaba and Glinda both male characters or a male and a female, no one would think of even half of their interactions in the books as purely platonic. And so the time period in which Wicked was created, the purposeful vagueness in the way they were written, combined with the historians will say they were good friends factor, is what makes it so easy for people to dismiss the romantic element of their relationship. And this is not to say that people are not allowed other interpretations of their relationship. Of course they are. But there's a difference between having a personal interpretation despite the intended interpretation and denying the intended interpretation exists altogether. I will say, I think that their love story shines through, even without the explicit romantic confirmation. And despite the musical and the film reducing the romantic element to purely subtext, that subtext is still very much a purposeful layer in both productions. For example, the writer of the musical, Stephen Schwartz, has stated that he structured Elphaba and Glinda's friendship arc parallel to that of romantic relationship arcs in classic musicals. And the musical also acknowledges and plays with the romantic element of their relationship through the song lyrics. For example, in What Is This Feeling, you have lines such as fervid as a flame, which broken down, fervid is a word which means passionate, and flame has the connotations of romantic desire, e.g. holding a flame for someone. My pulse is rushing, my head is reeling, my face is flushing. What is this feeling? These bodily reactions are associated with crushing and new love, which holds purposeful suggestion about their connection. And the line "kiss me goodbye" in Defying Gravity is a nod to the kiss Glinda and Elphaba share before they separate in the books. So from the lyrics, we can see the way in which the musical acknowledges the romantic element of their relationship, even though it confines it to a place of kind of playful suggestion. And the movie being a faithful adaptation of the musical, despite it being a much more modern production, it understandably takes that same approach. The movie, of course, is not exactly the same as the musical in terms of subtext, since the movie has more means to express that subtext, but we'll get to that next. In fairness, as I said earlier, Elphie and Glinda's relationship is multifaceted. There's so much more to it than just romance. And I don't know that the adaptations including a clear romantic confirmation would necessarily add anything to the story. That said, within the context of the wider picture and what their relationship represents, I think it's important to recognize that there is a core element or truth about these characters and their relationship that is diminished, and the fact that it's left unspoken from the 90s to today is a reflection of the fears and the prejudices in our society. Now, the movie adaptation takes an interesting approach to the Sapphic subtext because, like the musical, there's nothing explicit, but there are certainly purposeful romantic undertones to Glinda and Alfie's relationship conveyed through visual and emotional storytelling. First of all, there is a very palpable chemistry and connection between Cynthia and Ariana, which added a lot of depth to Elphaba and Glinda's relationship in this film. It's clear they understood the truth and the sanctity of the connection between these two characters, and their emotional acting tells a story about Glinda and Elphaba's relationship in itself. Really, their chemistry is a lot of what makes this movie so touching and compelling. To add to that, there are also a lot of tender touches, connective moments, intense eye contact, and raw vulnerability between the two throughout the film. And these smaller moments of intimacy combined with their palpable chemistry complements the romantic subtext and helps to convey the emotional complexity and unspoken layers of their unique relationship, as well as what sits at the heart of it, true love. In terms of visual storytelling, there are several scenes in the film which work to convey Glinda and Elphaba's romantic connection. Firstly, if we take a look at the "What is this feeling" sequence, we can see Glinda is in bed and she can't sleep for thinking about Elphaba, and so she turns her light on, and then Elphaba does the same. And they do this whilst singing the lines from "What is this feeling," which describe the bodily reactions associated with having a new crush. So putting these visuals, the restlessness in bed and turning on of lights, alongside these suggestive lyrics has obvious romantic connotations. This sequence is also interesting because it portrays the way they get under each other's skin and reveals the obsessive antagonism between them. And that, alongside the playful suggestiveness of the lyrics, it very much gives their relationship an "I hate you but I'm also obsessed with you because I secretly want you" dynamic, which is a dynamic that's signature to a lot of romantic arcs in media. The most touching and overt visual storytelling around their relationship in the film takes place in the Ozdust ballroom scene. This is a significant scene with a lot of layers to it. First of all, Elphaba turns up thinking that this is an opportunity for her to finally gain some social acceptance, only to be subjected to even more ridicule and treated as a spectacle. However, instead of appearing defeated by it, she doubles down and leans into the ridicule and the spectacle aspect. And what's interesting about this is that whilst people are laughing at her, it's clear that they also still fear her. And this contains a lot of messaging related to how people who are other in society are often feared as well as ridiculed. And Elphaba not only plays with that here, she also embraces her perceived ugliness by society by picking the hat back up off the floor and wearing it proudly, owning it. It's a very powerful scene which conveys so much by saying so little. Interestingly, in response to this, this, Fiyero makes a comment about how Elphaba doesn't care what anyone thinks. But Glinda corrects him and says of course she does, she just pretends not to. And the contrast between these two lines is very telling about how well each of these characters perceives and knows Elphaba, with Glinda being the one who recognizes and understands her truth, not Fiyero. And so Elphaba, in all her raw vulnerability, stands defiantly before everyone as other, and Glinda steps forward to join her, which is a huge gesture and display of character development for Glinda, given that she represents the status quo in a lot of ways, and considering the superficial and self-serving elements of her personality. And by joining Elphaba, Glinda makes herself other by association and opens herself up to that same humiliation. And it's in this moment of shared vulnerability that they begin to really see each other, exchange something of each other, and their antagonistic relationship melts into a deep, tender connection. Within the context of the Sapphic subtext, Glinda is also someone who is other herself, yet, unlike Elphaba, she has been able to camouflage herself as belonging to the status quo. And in this scene, her actions can be interpreted as her revealing herself as akin to Elphaba, or revealing of her otherness, which is yet another layer to their mirroring. The mirror dance is also a point of interest because the mirroring speaks to their shared connection, but it's also reminiscent of the mating or pairing rituals that a lot of birds have, where one will show off certain moves, and if the other is receptive, they will mirror those moves and become a pair. So this dance has quite deep romantic connotations to it too. The cherry on top of all of this is the way Alfie and Glinda both exit the dance hand in hand, whilst Fiyero is just left standing there. That spoke volumes. The popular sequence also conveys a lot about their romantic connection through visual storytelling. Firstly, the number starts out centered around a bed, which is similar to the musical, but the cinematography is interesting here because the shots of them lying down in bed facing each other are quite intimate and are often associated with portraying lovers. Glinda placing a pink flower in Elfie's hair is also significant because not only does the gifting of a flower have romantic suggestion, but it's also a visual representation of their emotional merging. Glinda noting that pink goes good with green is her noting that they suit one another. Glinda then tells Elphaba she's beautiful, which is presumably the first time Elphaba has received any kind of compliment or affection at all. And because of this, alongside the intimacy and connection in this moment, Elfie is so overwhelmed by the surge of emotions this causes, she runs out of the room. She panics. When Glinda steps out after her and sings the lines, "And though you protest your disinterest, I know clandestinely," everything softens and it's framed as though she's singing to or about a lover almost. And interestingly, clandestinely means something done secretly because it's illicit. And illicit means something that is forbidden by law, rules, or custom. And within the context of the Sapphic subtext, since same-sex relationships were and are often kept secret because of law, rules, or custom, it's possible this choice of word was chosen in relation to that, and therefore this potentially adds to the purposeful romantic connotations, especially given its placement in the song where the music and vocals soften and slow down. But regardless, the emotional acting choices and tone in this moment in the movie do evoke a romantic longing. The train station scene also contains romantic cinematic cliches. For example, Glinda running after the train as it's leaving because she forgot to give Elphaba something, and being asked to join her at the last minute are both actions that are often portrayed in and signature to romantic arcs in film, making this scene rather romantic coded. And after Glinda gives Elphaba the Emerald City leaflet with a note that reads, "I hope you get what your heart desires," Elfie immediately asks her to come with her. And this sequence creates a link between the two, implying that Glinda is what Elphaba's heart desires. It's also worth noting here that there's a deleted scene from the movie where they fall asleep on each other on the train, which is a moment taken from the books, and this further reinforces their emotional harmony and comfortable intimacy with one another. And let's just say it how it is. That whole montage of them in Emerald City was giving loved up couple in Europe. Now, touching upon Fiyero briefly, I think it's interesting how he's portrayed in the film. I know his character has some relevancy to the main plot, but the issue with the romance aspect is Glinda and Elphie have this fascinating, intense, all-consuming karmic connection, which is palpable and overwhelms them both to the point of tears. And Fiyero is just there. Both Elphaba and Glinda's respective relationship with Fiyero feels somewhat performative and certainly pales in comparison to their relationship with each other, which makes the romance aspect with his character feel a little contrived. And as is evident from the visual storytelling in this film, it seems John Chu maybe feels the same way. And yes, Glinda talks about marrying Fiyero and how much she wants him, but it feels as though her interest in him stems from a fairy tale vision and adhering to the status quo rather than a genuine romantic connection. It does feel like heterosexual romance box ticking. And I think ultimately the reason the love triangle with Fiyero feels so contrived is because the main love story, whether you see it as platonic or romantic, is between Elphaba and Glinda. Finally, in the Defying Gravity number, there's a lot of rich emotional storytelling throughout the sequence, which reveals the depth of Glinda and Elphaba's connection. And I think what's interesting is that Defying Gravity is very much about breaking free of expectation and embracing your otherness. And the lyrics, alongside what's happening in the sequence, frame both Glinda and Elphaba as people who are being kept down by the establishment and who need to break free of it in order to truly embrace themselves, all of which contains parallels to gay and lesbian experience. But where Elphaba is taking a stand against the system in the hopes of changing it and has thrown aside her fears, Glinda wants to work within that system in the hopes of changing it, and her emotional conflict is between her love for Elphaba and her own ambitions. I think it's also true that Glinda is still bound by her fears, and that's what keeps her grounded, which again contains parallels to gay and lesbian experience. But despite their fundamental differences in character, they're not able to actually say goodbye to each other in this scene because it's too painful, and there's a lot of unspoken communication between them about why that is. It's as if the bond they have created transcends both friendship and a romantic relationship, and as though they found something of themselves in each other that has irrevocably altered them, and the connection that they've created has changed the both of them fundamentally in a way that's going to remain with them forever. Some might even say for good, which is another reason why it can never truly be goodbye between them. The eye contact, it went beyond gay. Overall, in my opinion, I have always felt like these two were a true love story, regardless of whether their relationship is defined as platonic or romantic. They are soulmates. And whilst it's true the adaptations do diminish their romantic relationship to purely subtext, I think the essence of the true nature of their relationship shines through regardless. And that's what makes this pairing so compelling and special, and what has kept that kind of aura of fascination surrounding them throughout all these years. In conclusion, the lab results show there is nothing heterosexual about these two. Okay guys, let me know your thoughts on all things Gelfie down in the comments section below, and let me know what you thought of the Wicked movie. Personally, I am very obsessed. I'm very obsessed. It is my newborn child. Don't forget to subscribe for instant disappointment, and to see you guys soon. Bye.